Hi, this is Chatboxing. I'm Sean, and this is going to be a breakdown and prediction video for Anthony Joshua, Wladimir Klitschko. I've got Sean with me to talk about this one as well. How's it going, Sean?
Yeah, good mate. Been a while. Haven't had a
Yeah,
little chat in a couple of weeks, have we? So, yeah,
no,
Wladimir is back on. Good fight to talk about.
definitely. Yeah. Well, I think most people would agree that when this fight got announced, or at least when it was first talked about, it was quite unexpected, and it seemed like quite a kind of audacious move, really, from Anthony Joshua.
Yeah.
So what's your take on the sort of events leading up to this and the fact that Anthony Joshua is taking this fight so early on in his career?
I think it's quite an interesting question, really. I mean, for Anthony Joshua, I mean, from going from the likes of Brazil to White to Molina, and then stepping up to Wladimir Klitschko, um, it's a big move for him. It's very early on in his career. But equally, I think he's obviously seeing Klitschko, who's obviously on the tail end of his career. He's just come off of a defeat to Tyson Fury, and I think Joshua's possibly thinking that it's a perfect time for him to take advantage of beating a champion who's obviously dominated the division for so many years, or did dominate the division, I should say. So I think Joshua, like he always likes to say, I hate to say it, but he's hungry, and I think he wants to prove a point. I think obviously he's steamrolled all of his opponents thus far, and I think you'll agree with me when I say this, that every opponent that Joshua's faced, we've both said that he's gonna win the fight. I think this is the first fight for Joshua where you can't truly say that he's going to go in and just knock the shit out of somebody. He's definitely in for a fight with Klitschko, and Klitschko obviously, this could inevitably be his last fight, and maybe this is a fight for him to kind of create his legacy. So really interesting kind of take on both sides for me. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously if what happened if Vladimir Klitschko had never lost his titles to Tyson Fury, then this wouldn't be happening. I think Joshua he probably would be coming along at a more steady pace. But like in life, in anything, like if an opportunity presents itself, then you have to take it, don't you?
Absolutely.
It's a bit like with the Charles Martin, same situation. I don't think anyone thought that Charles. Well, actually, some people thought Charles Martin might be but not really. No one. He was a bit of a nobody, really, wasn't he? Nobody really thought that Charles Martin would be like a serious threat. The point was, what happened after that? By beating him, you're now a world champion. So potentially, you have to fight the likes of Klitschko, Fury, Wilder, these kind of fighters. So I think that was in itself faster than in an ideal world the route he would have taken. But because the opportunity presented itself, he took it. So that's basically what's happened here as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And for AJ, if I were him, I'd certainly have taken the fight. And just before we go into the kind of nitty gritty facts of the fight and how we see it going, and what we see about both fighters, I mean, what you've got to give to AJ is the fact that he's obviously done massive things for heavyweight boxing since he's come into the game. He hasn't really necessarily fought anyone that big, but he's demolished people in such style that he's obviously fascinated not just the kind of hardcore boxing fans, but also the more casual members of the public. So he's brought them in like massively, and I think that's just really good for boxing in general, and it's great for heavyweight boxing, which was a bit boring, which I think you'd agree with for I don't know,
Yeah,
past however many years that Klitschko was kind of just
yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons why he's moved along so quickly, because he's English and because he's so popular in England and because boxing is so popular in England, he's got that push behind him. So you want to see big things from him. You know what I mean? Where you've got someone, obviously, like the obvious comparison, Deontay Wilder, he's got double as many fights, hasn't he? But he's done nothing really of note in his career. I mean, okay, he won the WBC belt, but in terms of like taking risks and being involved in big fight. He's done nothing. There hasn't really been a push for him. No one really knows who he is. So that's why nothing really is, not like nothing is expected of him. Things are expected of him from hardcore boxing fans, but most people don't even know him. So Anthony Joshua, because he's getting so much hype, because he's getting so much attention, people want to see him back that up. Do you know what I mean? That's got to be justified. I mean, he was on pay-per-view to fight for the British title. Do you remember Dylan White?
Well, was he pay-per-view? And correct me if I'm wrong. Against Gary Cornish, was that possibly pay-per-view?
I mean,
don't quote me on it, but I think it was. I really think it was possibly. I don't know.
If it was, then that's even more mental than I thought. But I thought that, to be honest with you, I don't think, if anyone can put in the comment section, confirm that, I'm 100% sure that Dylan White was pay-per-view.
Of course it was, yeah.
For a British title fight.
Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But I just, no, maybe it wasn't. I think.
Well, I've never seen a British title fight for pay-per-view. So that sort of hype that was around him, like Eddie Hearn just really talking a big game for him. And to be honest, ever since early on in his career, Joshua, he's been in I wouldn't say high profile against big name opponents, but he's been like headlining shows, hasn't he? And he's had like big crowds. He's had a lot of media attention. He's had a lot of pressure on him because obviously he won the gold medal in London, in his own city. So as a heavyweight, he was obviously already very popular with like the sort of mainstream society in Britain. So he's had a lot of pressure since early on in his career, which I think will benefit him in this fight. This is another level of pressure, but he's had a good schooling in terms of being, under the spotlight.
Yeah, well, he's been heavily promoted, isn't he? I mean, Sky Sports obviously have him as their cash cow, and he's all over the adverts, like absolutely everywhere. You can't even watch a football match. Sometimes you'll see something about Joshua coming in on Sky Sports. I mean, he's just the man to beat at the minute. He's the superstar, isn't he, in boxing essentially? Yeah. Even though he's like we said, he's not necessarily beaten anyone in particular. Sorry. But yeah, one thing I did want to go into before we go into the fight was just the fact that all credit to AJ, he is a superstar. He's got the Wladimir Klitschko coming over to Wembley. The negotiations for that definitely must have been interesting because the Klitschko brothers are notoriously known for being very difficult in their negotiations, and I can imagine Eddie Hearn and Joshua sitting around the table, and I can't imagine Vlad getting anything better than a 50-50 split on this one. Not sure what your take on that is, but
yeah, in terms of finances, he won't be getting more than that. I mean, why should he? To be honest, I mean, Anthony Joshua is like a box office. I mean, it sounds like ridiculous, like Eddie Hearn. But do you know what I mean? He's selling out arenas. He's like selling loads of pay-per-view for British title fights. He's a man of the moment. He's in his own country, in his own city, where he's like the most popular boxer in the country, hands down at the moment. So Wladimir Klitschko can't say. It's not like if, I don't know, like Manny Pacquiao came over to fight Sam Eggington. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And then he said, "Look, mate, we're selling out because of me." To be honest, a little bit like when Golovkin came to fight Brook, it was kind of similar kind of situation, wasn't it? Both of them, obviously, like Golovkin is like, he's got a bigger buzz at the moment than Klitschko, but obviously Anthony Joshua is much bigger than Kell Brook. So it's kind of like he's contributing a lot to it, but he's definitely not saying that I'm coming over here and I'm bringing my like world titles. He's got one sort of on the line, hasn't he, which he's managed to get the WBA, I think. But that's vacant. That's not his title. So he's basically bringing that and his reputation. But yeah, I'd be very surprised if he probably is getting 50% because just of his ego, to be honest, and there's so much money to go around, it probably doesn't really matter.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing that I think is important there is that Wladimir Klitschko. If you look at what happened when Tyson Fury went to Germany, they had the situation with the ring. People don't really talk about that. When Wladimir Klitschko and his team put loads of foam under the ring,
Yeah.
with cheating, basically. I mean, that's a sort of obvious cheating that we know about. We don't know what other kind of stuff, funny business was going on behind the scenes.
Well, they had stuff with the gloves, didn't they? They had all that sort of stuff, and then the Furies were even saying that they had loads of people offering them water. I don't know whether that's bollocks or not, but
Vladimir Klitschko like wrapped his gloves up before like Peter Fury got in there to see it. Do you remember
yeah.
So,
Peter forced him to take him off.
Undo them, do that again.
Yeah.
You know, no, I don't care, mate. Do it again. So he had to take them off and do it again. So there's a lot of advantages. These are just the obvious ones that we know about. There's a lot of funny business behind the scenes there that they've done in Germany over the years. Remember, David Hay got sent out through the crowd, got like kind of jostled by a load of people. Pulev was talking about loads. I mean, there's just loads of examples. So the fact that it's now going to be in the UK with Matchroom, obviously very powerful. Anthony Joshua, big star, got the whole country behind him. There's none of that going to be going on. You know, like Klitschko, in that sense, is very much the B side. I hate to use that word, but in terms of like controlling what's going on behind the scenes, he's not going to have any of that advantage. So he's going to come here and going to be really out of his element. Now, the way he's talking, he's saying as if he doesn't care about that. He thinks that's going to be almost like a weight off his shoulders. But you know, that remains to be seen. From what I've seen over the years is that he's really liked to have things his own way and excelled in his comfort zone. So I think that is going to be significant with this fight. Would you agree?
I'd say possibly. I don't know how much I'd agree with it, because at the same time, how many fights has Klitschko had? He's had, or how many rounds has he boxed as well? I mean, like you've obviously you've seen the adverts, and Joshua's boxed like about 50 rounds or something like that, maybe even less. I can't even remember what it was. And Klitschko's been there and done it. He's done 12 rounds a series of times, and he's been in the spotlight, and I think he's used to the pressure. So yeah, I mean, he might not be used to coming into someone's backyard, and obviously having the whole crowd against him could be a really crucial factor, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he reacts to that. But equally, when you've had 60 fights and I know across 10 years you've been fighting at world championship level, I don't know, there's a certain level of professionalism and how much you'd expect him to be able to cope with it. I don't know.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt he has like a huge experience. What I'm saying is like he's potentially got used to having everything his own way. You know, he got used to like, okay, his last two fights, when he went over to America to fight Bryant Jennings. Now Bryant Jennings is no Anthony Joshua in terms of popularity, in terms of status, in terms of anything really. I mean, he does a couple of things maybe you could argue better, but really he went over. Where was that? Was that Madison Square Gardens?
Not sure.
It was quite a small event. It was quite a low-key affair. Bryant Jennings wasn't really like even the number one in America at that time. Do you know what I mean?
He wasn't. I think it was 19-0 or something at the time. So
yeah,
he was an up-and-comer, wasn't he? But
yeah, Deontay Wilder was the man in America, and even he doesn't have the same kind of support network behind him. So before that, he fought Tyson Fury. He lost very convincingly. So, you know, that kind of invincibility that he had, when you go to Germany, you basically do everything under his terms. He's got that kind of... I don't think that Wladimir Klitschko, what I'm trying to say, is the kind of person who is 100% confident when the deck isn't stacked in his favour. Which I think is that's basically what I'm trying to say. I think in Germany he's had everything in his own way, and he's got some confidence through that. So now going to London and having everything, like not being able to control everything, because I'm sure that Hearn and Josh and all his team have got enough nous about them that they're going to see, yeah, let's really sort of control everything, because that's what they want to do, and that is going to slightly throw him off his game, I think.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
Possibly. I mean, looking more into the fight, I mean, if we look at both fighters, starting with Klitschko, If you look at like kind of his key wins that he's had across his career, and I'm putting them in no particular order, but in recent years he's beaten people like Povetkin, Pulev, he's beaten Tony Thompson, obviously David Hay, he beat in spectacular fashion, Jennings, like you said, Marius Wok. I mean, he's beaten a series of people, some of which have been a similar size to him, and he's dispatched them quite well, either by TKO, knockout, or just unanimous decision. And the only person he's ever come into trouble with is Tyson Fury, and that's someone who's much bigger than him, or taller than him, let's say, had a bigger reach, and just provided something that he'd never fought before. And in my eyes,
and it might be someone who's just basically a better fighter than him as well. Not everyone's going to agree with that, but that's a key point.
He was a better fighter on the night, yes.
I think he's better than him. I don't think he obviously, like Wladimir Klitschko, you look at the sort of the consistency in the 10-year reign, the professionalism, him being an athlete. But in terms of like in a boxing match, I don't think he's as good as Tyson Fury. No, I wouldn't say not even close. That's an exaggeration, but significantly less skillful, in my opinion, and versatile.
But wouldn't you put that down to Tyson Fury's credentials, more like his features? Obviously, like I said, he's very tall, very big, and Klitschko is not used to being the smaller guy, which is why it caused him so many problems on the night.
No, I'd put it down to I just think Tyson Fury can do more things than Wladimir Klitschko. Now, obviously, Wladimir Klitschko has beaten better opponents, and he's sort of reigned at the top for a long time. But I've seen him pretty much do the same thing against everyone. I've seen Tyson Fury beat people in various different ways, and I've seen him kind of. To me, I just think he's more skillful, and I think he's obviously doesn't have the discipline. I could no way see him going like sort of 10 years unbeaten like Wladimir Klitschko. But I think those two I just think he's better. I think that's the reason why he lost to him.
Yeah, well, I can't disagree with that. I mean, on the night, he did everything better. His boxing skills, his movement, everything was much better than Klitschko's. But previously to that, I mean, like, your argument's good, but you can also say that in previous fights, Fury never looked as good as he did that night, and I think that night we saw the best of Tyson Fury. So I don't know. I think it's you could discuss.
But I've seen him look very good in lots of other fights as well. I haven't seen him look. I mean, I've seen him look better, to be honest. Haven't seen him put on that performance against someone of that quality. But it wasn't a surprise to me, is what I'm saying. So I don't see that being as relevant to this fight as a lot of people think. I predicted that Fury was going to beat Klitschko. I thought he should do. I thought he had everything to do it. So I wasn't really surprised when he did beat him. A lot of people saw that as a big upset. I didn't. So that's why, for me, it's not a big factor in this fight. Now, as people have pointed out, Bryant Jennings, he didn't look that great in that fight prior to that either. Now, Bryant Jennings, in my opinion, isn't as good as Wladimir Klitschko. I don't think many people would disagree with that. No. And he didn't look great in that fight either. I mean, he looked all right. He won the fight, clearly, but it wasn't his best performance, and there were possible signs that he was sort of getting past his best.
Yeah. I mean, I think the key point I was trying to make earlier was that when Klitschko has boxed against people that are his own size with a similar reach or less, and Joshua and Klitschko are both they're basically the same height, same reach. As far as they both go, yeah, they're pretty equal. And when Klitschko plays chess in boxing, he tends to win, doesn't he? I mean, he got knocked on his arse a few times early in his career, but against opponents since 2004, like back when you probably had a full head of hair, I mean, he
1994, I did.
Well, anyway, he's dispatched everybody bar Tyson Fury. Like if it goes 12 rounds, he's got unanimous decisions. It's never been a split decision. Other than that, it's been a technical knockout. So I think it's something that's you need to take into account in this fight. I mean, if AJ doesn't blow him out, then what happens? And yeah.
I think the smart money is that if Joshua can't knock him out, then he's unlikely to outbox him.
Yeah.
So let's start then. So a couple of questions actually. Did you see? I haven't actually seen Wladimir Klitschko like footage recently preparing for this. Did you see Joshua in his sort of IFL footage from the open workout?
No, I didn't.
Well, I saw him like on the pads and he's like the bag as well. He looked fucking fast, like for someone his size. Like his combinations, and he's got really like his technique is exceptional, I think. And he's got really fast hands, and he looked sharp. He looked like his kind of in and out movement looked very good. One thing that I noticed that looked potentially problematic against someone like Klitschko, I don't know if it's just like the pad work, but he had quite predictable movement. Do you know what I mean? Like he had like a really obvious rhythm. Like he was literally like 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, 4, and then like doing his stuff. And it looked to me like someone like Klitschko, if that's how he fights, he'll just basically get that rhythm within about a minute. Do you know what I mean? Because it wasn't like someone who, like Tyson used to like sort of bob and weave, but he was a lot more erratic with it. Not erratic, but he didn't have that just literally like.
Yeah.
And like someone like Klitschko, who's got that range, he could just there, boom, boom, just pick him off with that jab, catch him with the right hand. So I hope that when he does get into the fight, he doesn't have such an obvious rhythm of movement like that with his kind of head movement, because that's something that people are saying he doesn't have great head movement, and that's one of the reasons why Tyson Fury beat him so convincingly, in my opinion. Because that jab, that he's always landing. If he can't land that jab, then he doesn't throw the right hand. He doesn't throw with that like sort of lead left hook, those like big punches that he has. So if he can't land that jab on you, then you don't really have to worry about the straight right or the left hook. So someone like Fury, who was moving his head about, changing the levels, switching stances, weaving, like bobbing, ducking, coming under. He was just a constantly moving target, moving it back. Do you know what I mean? He never knew where that head was going to be.
Yeah.
Now, Joshua, from what I've seen in his fights, is a much more, not static, but a much easier target to aim for. And from what I've seen in that, what he sort of seems to have been working on the head movement, it looked to me like Klitschko's not going to have much problem landing a jab. And if that happens, then, that's very bad news for Joshua.
Yeah, see, I totally agree with you there. Like, I think that Vlad is going to have success with his jab in this fight. And I think a key question that everyone's interested to ask and see is, I don't know, can Joshua find that opening? And I think it's going to be a key factor possibly to whether Joshua can win the fight, is can Joshua land that one punch that he seems to be able to land every single fight that allows him to sit there and be like, right, okay, I'm about to explode now, and just go and just completely annihilate my opponent. Because that's what he's done every single fight so far, isn't it? He lands one punch, Joshua, and then he knows that he's hit someone hard, and then he goes in and he completely just demolishes them. And is he going to be able to do that against Wladimir Klitschko? I mean, Wladimir Klitschko has not been knocked out in many, many years. So that's something I'm really interested to see. I mean, part of me obviously would love like to see Joshua really dispatch him quite quickly, but another part of me, I quite like Wladimir Klitschko in a way as well. And I don't know, I'd like to see Klitschko give him a bit of a boxing lesson maybe before he does that.
So, obviously of course I want Anthony Joshua to win. If he does lose, but lose on a close fight on points, I won't mind too much. Because then
Anthony Joshua.
Yeah, mean, obviously, like ideally, I want Klitschko to win. I mean, sorry, Joshua to win. But if he does lose and if he gets knocked out, like that could be that would be bad, really.
Yeah.
Depending on how he gets knocked out. But if he basically gets outpointed in a close fight, then I don't think that's going to be disastrous for him. You know what I mean? You can definitely see him coming back stronger from that.
See, I was planning to ask you about that a bit later, so I will ask you about it now. I mean, this fight's at Wembley, and obviously we're going to have 90,000 people. Carl Froch, hope you're listening. Bet you're not, but if you are, 90,000 people screaming for Anthony Joshua every time he lands a punch. There's going to be an uproar, and I'm just interested to see if it did go to points, and if me and you, for example, were to think that Klitschko edged or clearly won the fight, if Joshua would get the decision based upon maybe the hype of what he does in the fight through noise and things like that. And I think through stuff that we've seen recently, when we look back at the likes of Ward Kovalev, like we both thought that Kovalev got robbed, and one of my key questions I was planning to ask a bit later was, can you see Wladimir Klitschko getting robbed if it does go to points? And when I say robbed, I want to use the term lightly. I'm using it lightly.
To be honest, like, unfortunately, yes, I can. Like, for the reason you said about the 90,000, the atmosphere is going to be absolutely ridiculous. Like, what you've also got to bear in mind is because it's so big, you have these people in the crowd, you can't really see what's going on. So this, like, Anthony Joshua, like, sort of throws a jab, and it's nowhere near Wladimir Klitschko. You still got people going, even when he doesn't touch him, like, it's going to be a mental reaction. So when he does start unloading this like flurry, the place is going to go fucking loopy. So you can't not be affected by that as a judge. And also, just the Anthony Joshua now is arguably like the biggest. I mean, if he wins this, like along with like Canelo, I suppose you could say, like Pacquiao's kind of fading out now, isn't he? He's still a massive star, but in terms of like who can draw a crowd, he's arguably like the biggest star in world boxing.
Him and Canelo, yeah.
Him and Canelo, yeah. So, you know, that, and obviously like London, like being a big market, or England being a big market, Klitschko on his way out, you've got to think that, like, in terms of the politics, Anthony Joshua is going to get the nod, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? Hopefully it doesn't come to that, but
I think so, yeah.
It's pretty naive to think that it wouldn't favour him when you look at all things considered.
Yeah. Okay, so another good question for you. Do you think Klitschko can knock him out? And before you answer the question, I want to look back to the Dillian White fight, where Dillian hit Joshua one big slap. Can't remember, it's 4th, 5th round or something, wasn't it? Maybe the 3rd round. Yeah, can't remember. 3rd round, yeah. And Joshua's legs wobbled a little bit.
Yeah.
And anyone who knows about who's followed Wladimir Klitschko knows that he can punch. I mean, he can go 12 rounds, but he can certainly punch as well. I mean,
he's the most proven puncher in the division, really.
He is. I mean, in recent years against very good boxers, he's gone distance, but he's still knocked out good boxers as well, or technically had 10 KOs. So
yeah, I mean, like sort of Wilder and Joshua. I mean, who have they knocked out really? No one of any note. Klitschko's knocked out like top level opposition for years.
He has. So that was my question. Do you think, obviously there's a chance he can knock him out, but what sort of chance do you give of Klitschko knocking Joshua out?
Well, it's quite a big chance. I'll give him quite a big chance. Like, first of all, going back to the crowd again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you think of how, like, I mean, hyped up is going to be in there, and just that energy, you think, like, Anthony Joshua, how long he's been working up to this, how excited he's going to be. He's very composed, don't get me wrong, but you could see him getting caught up in the moment, like, you know, hurting Klitschko, and then getting a bit carried away, walking onto something. Like, Dillian White done it with a left hook, didn't he?
Well, he hit him with something. I can't remember,
The left
but yeah, yeah,
hook. I mean, that's one of Klitschko's best punches.
yeah.
And he gets hit with like, I mean, he's cleaning up his defence a little bit, Joshua, but he's still a bit raw, isn't he? So Klitschko, with the sort of tact, you could see him with his old sort of, he's obviously very wise. He's been around the block a few times. I could definitely see him sneakily like catching Joshua with a big left hook. So if that happens, and as I say, if he's landing a jab like he does, he's not. Joshua can slip the jab quite nicely and come back with that right hand. He does that quite well. It's one of his, like he did against, best example against Martin. He knocked him out with that, didn't he? Like he can just be there and he'll just slip it, boom, come back with that right hand. That's something he does quite well. But apart from that, he doesn't really have the best defence against like the sort of straight punches either.
No, he doesn't. He relies on his offence quite clearly, which you can tell by his 100% knockout record. So, yeah, I don't think we've seen the best.
Klitschko knocking him out.
Well, no, I don't think. What I was going to say is I don't think that we've seen Anthony Joshua be able to display his defensive capabilities, because quite frankly he hasn't had to. He's fought quite a few rounds, and due to knocking people out so quickly, I don't think, apart from Dillian White stumbling once, I don't think anyone's rocked him whatsoever, have they? So
No.
yeah.
Well, what about the mindset going into this? Because I mean, people are making quite a lot of this, like the gloves are off. That Klitschko was basically sort of, not sort of talking down to him, but just being a bit, that Joshua's almost like in awe of Klitschko. What's your take on all that stuff? Did you see that?
I did. I don't believe that Joshua is in awe of Klitschko whatsoever. I think that Joshua fully believes he can go in and absolutely knock him out. I think that if the fight goes to, let's just say, the 7th round, and Joshua's a big monster, isn't he? He's a big bodybuilder. I mean, he's got massive muscles. He's going to be steaming by the time he gets to 7 rounds. And like we said earlier, Klitschko's gone the distance plenty of times. If Joshua hasn't hurt Klitschko by that time, and it's a very close fight, I can see him getting very nervous. Hopefully, and if it gets to that point, Joshua will just go ham and really start throwing some haymakers and make it a really classic heavyweight boxing fight. But if it gets to the 7th round plus, I can see him blowing out possibly, and that's where Klitschko's experience I can see coming in, and that's where I can see him nicking rounds and like just kind of being able to use all of like I said, his experience from his past fights and just show Joshua how to end fights, because Joshua's never gone 12 rounds. I think that's just so key to this fight. If he can't demolish him before the first half, then I don't have much hope for him in the second half.
Well, really. especially as you say, he's such a sort of big bloke, and he's like muscles. Like he doesn't look like he's going to do 12 rounds that easily. Maybe looks can be deceiving, but yeah, without having seen him do it, it's definitely like a big question mark.
Yeah.
In terms of the mentality, I don't think it's gonna, like people say, Joshua looks a bit kind of nervous, like he's a bit like in awe and all this kind of stuff. I don't think so. Like Klitschko's kind of telling him what to do and all this. I just think that Joshua doesn't really care about any of that stuff. He's just quite. But at the end of the day, Klitschko isn't going in. If Klitschko was saying to him, "Oi, you do this, do that," Joshua would tell him to fuck off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But because of the way that Klitschko is, he's quite polite and he's quite subtle with it. I just think that he doesn't really care. He's like kind of, do you know what I mean? He's just quite. He's not a confrontational person as such if he doesn't need to be. So if Wladimir Klitschko, people are thinking, oh, he's like subtly like sort of I just don't really think he gives a shit about stuff like that. In his mind, he's thinking, yeah, why not? There's no reason for me to get into like an argument about this. If he wants to basically sort of give me a little fist bump, I'm not going to be like, oh no, I'm not doing that because you started it. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just not the way he is. So I think when he actually sort of gets into all that just goes out the window. And I think he's going to go in there, like you say, thinking, I can basically knock this bloke out. I've basically just sort of knocked out everyone. I'm basically younger, faster. In his mind, hits harder. You know, it's my moment. I'm in my city. I'm going to fucking knock you out, mate. That's how he sees it. So all this other stuff, I just think he's quite he's just not a kind of bloke to be looking to get into like arguments with people for no reason. Because it's not like Klitschko's really doing that either. I do think it's going to make a difference for Klitschko though, compared to the Fury one, because he was obviously very uncomfortable in those situations. So he went into that fight like less confident. I think this one is going to affect Klitschko's mindset in a good way, but I don't see it having any effect on Joshua, to be honest with you.
No, I really don't either. I think Joshua's. I don't think he would have taken the fight. I don't think, unless he really thought he was going to win, that he would have sat there and actually taken this fight. Apart from the fact that obviously he's going to earn millions and millions of pounds. I mean, I can't even think about how much they're both going to earn off of this fight. So equally, Joshua could just be just looking at the six figures. But no, he's definitely going into this fight, and he's thinking that he's going to be able to win. No doubt about it.
One last thing then before we do the prediction.
Yeah.
Wladimir Klitschko, got to give him massive credit for taking on this challenge at his age, having like been out of the ring for 18 months. But he's just still like, how old is he now? 41.
42.
42. Fucking hell, 42. He's still wanting to really prove himself as number one. So I mean, obviously criticised him before, but you've got to give him huge credit for that. He obviously thinks he knows something about this. Do you know what I mean? That we don't, or that Joshua doesn't. I know they sparred together. He's obviously a student of the game. So he didn't have to take on this fight. It wasn't like Fury, where he was a mandatory challenger. He didn't really want to take that fight. This one, he's chosen to. So what does that suggest to you? To me, it makes me think that he's very, very confident going into this for whatever reason.
I think personally, I think you're right. I think Klitschko is possibly confident just because I reckon through analysing Joshua's kind of quite early career, I think they could have looked at his fights and just seen, basically created a game plan about how they're going to go about beating Joshua. I think if Vlad comes off to a good start and it's like kind of tit for tat and he's just nicking rounds at the start, I think he's going to get in a good rhythm. And I think that's what his game plan is. His game plan is obviously just going to be to stay away from Joshua early when he's most dangerous, which is obviously rounds 1 to 5, and then from 6 onwards, I mean, you're in Klitschko's territory then, aren't you? And if Joshua hasn't, I don't know, like, I'll leave it to the prediction that I know you're about to go into. So yeah.
Alright, shall I give you my prediction then?
Yeah, go on. Yeah, so I know you're going to it.
Yeah, well, first of all, I say that I'm quite unsure of this.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not a prediction that I've got that much conviction behind. I can sort of see a number of scenarios. I certainly wouldn't be surprised if Klitschko knocked out Joshua, or just sort of outboxed him and then kind of bored his way through the last sort of 3 or 4 rounds, coasted.
Yeah.
But I do think, like with Anthony Joshua, we haven't really seen like the best of him. And one thing that I do like about him is just that from early on, as I mentioned earlier in his career, he's been in a quite high-profile situation, and he's had a lot of pressure on him. He's been pretty much living like a monk, like a Shaolin monk, like training all the time, like just getting better and better. I mean, he started quite young, didn't he? I mean, quite old, really, like about 18 or something. And I think he really understands the opportunity that he has, and I think he's just totally focused on it. And I think that he's got the mindset where he's going to be able to go in there and stay composed. I don't think it's possible to get carried away. And it's possible just the experience that Klitschko has, he can just pull something off on him. But I do think that he's going to go in there. He's going to keep his composure, and he's going to try to. He's going to fight like he does, like aggressively, but not thinking that he's fighting against Eric Molina and he can just blast him out in the first like few rounds. I think he's going to like conserve energy as far as he can, and I think he's going to. I'm just not sure if Klitschko, just seeing how fast Joshua looks, just seeing how quick on his feet he looks, and obviously when you put the power with that as well, I just don't know if Klitschko is going to be able to kind of protect himself against Joshua, like for the whole time. He might be able to, like here and there, if he can establish his jab, and if he can basically make Joshua overcautious because of the step up, because of the occasion, because of like what's at stake. Then I think Josh, if he can slow down the fight, then I definitely think that Klitschko can beat him. But I just think if Joshua can control the pace and like can fight with intensity, but not stupidly, doing it like sporadically, then I just think sooner or later he's going to hit Klitschko with something. And I just don't think Klitschko's got the reflexes anymore. I don't think he's got the speed of foot that he did have to avoid it. One thing Klitschko does very well, and he's a master at this, is range. He controls the range brilliantly. But as we saw against Tyson Fury, he's kind of got stuck in his ways a little bit. He's got used to a certain way of fighting, a certain range. I think Anthony Joshua having the same range, same reach as him. He doesn't have the same control of range, but he does have very quick feet, and he can come in and out well, Joshua. So I just think if they do get into like exchanges, you've obviously got to favour Klitschko for the timing. But Joshua, just the speed of Joshua, I'm seeing him in his recent fights getting better and better. Just seeing him on the pads, he looked like really quick for a heavyweight. And I just don't think at this stage Klitschko is going to be able to live with that for 12 rounds, especially with all the crowd behind him. I think he might get a little bit like panicked, basically. Now, he say that he won't, but I think that he will. I mean, I've seen a few times when he's got hurt, he doesn't really react very well, Klitschko. So I think someone like Johnny is going to be just constantly on him. I think that, I'm going to go with Anthony Joshua by knockout, probably by, I don't know, I'm going to say like in about 8 rounds.
Okay.
I'm not very confident about that, don't get me wrong, but that's one way I could see it playing out. But I made a video saying that why are people writing off Wladimir Klitschko? Because people talking about it as if that's mental, that this is easy. I could definitely see Klitschko winning this fight as well. I see it as a real 50-50.
Yeah.
But the scenario that I think is most likely to play out is that
Joshua knocks him out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. I mean, for most of the, I hate to use the term casual fans, but the people that like just watch the big fights, they will obviously have followed Joshua, and they will inevitably be thinking that Joshua is gonna go and steamroll this 40-odd-year-old geezer, and they're gonna expect a knockout at some point between round 1 and 6. Let's just say. I've got the idea in my head that the Klitschko's are going to go in with a really good game plan. I think that firstly, before I say that, I think Joshua obviously is going to approach this fight, like you said, very differently to the likes of his last 3 fights, which were obviously Molina, White, and Brazil, I believe. I mean, like he's fighting a completely different calibre of fighter, and because of that, Joshua's going to approach this like differently to anything that we've ever seen him do before. So how he approaches that is going to be key to the very start of the fight. I think the start of the fight is really going to dictate kind of what happens with regards to how successful Joshua is. I think going back to my Klitschko's game plan point, I think that they're going to sit there and try and really kind of just keep a slow tempo in the first couple of rounds. I can see him just trying to obviously establish his world-class jab that everyone knows that he's got, and then really try and get it into the kind of mid to late stages of the fight and just kind of keep it tit for tat, not let Joshua come in busting him with his left and rights, and just like Klitschko's obviously just gonna not want to get hit. Equally, I think that if he does hit Joshua, and we've seen Joshua get wobbled, I think that I can see Vlad actually pouncing on him. And I know other people might disagree. A lot of people will have watched a lot of Vlad's fights, maybe more so than myself. But I think if Vlad was to see an opening in this fight, if he gets a good punch in there, I can see him jumping in. So not to elaborate any further, I think that I can see Joshua actually getting out of boxing this fight. If he can't get the knockout prior to round 6, then I think that on points, Vlad will end up winning it. Like we said earlier, there's always a chance that because it's at Wembley, and if the rounds are very close, they could be going Joshua's way because the referees are swayed by it. But on my own scorecard, I think if it does come down to that, I'll probably have Vlad on top. And for me, I'm picking Wladimir Klitschko because I think he's going to have too much experience. He's a much better boxer than I think Joshua is. And should he withstand his power, then he's got it. And I think that after his embarrassing defeat to Tyson Fury, which I know he's mortified about, I think he's going to be very prepared for the fight. So I'm picking him.
This is a key point because he's, like you say, this potentially his last fight. So he's really going to want to go out and put on a crazy performance. A bit like Carl Froch against George Groves, the last fight at Wembley, when he really thought, I've had a great career and I don't really want to finish it like that. Like people thinking, Carl Froch got put on his ass, he looked a bit shit. He really came out there to prove a point, didn't he? So I absolutely think that Wladimir Klitschko is going to do the same thing. I think he's going to come out there 100% focused, 100% hunger, just really trying to win the fight. I just think that basically the sort of speed advantage, like the fact that he slowed down with his feet as well, I just think that's going to be too much for him if Anthony Joshua keeps his composure. Because this isn't like super middleweights. These are like fucking big lumps. So when you're as big as Joshua and you hit that hard and you're basically as quick as he's punching, and then you see the sort of the dip in the reflexes of Vlad, especially he's been out the ring for like 18 months, and how the fact he just doesn't his feet. When he fought David Haye, David Haye's smaller than Joshua and he's well predictable. He just came in with that big right hand, but he was able to just like jab and get his 1-2s off, and then just a little step back. He was so quick on his feet, even like just a basic movement. David Haye couldn't get anywhere near him. Now, if he was still had that kind of foot speed, or close to that kind of foot, I'd say he has a very good chance. I'd probably pick him to win. But I just see it being quite difficult for him to really avoid Joshua's onslaught unless he can just really, which like is very plausible, that he just totally slows it down, takes Joshua out of his game, and then we'll see. Yeah, as I say, I'm kind of on the fence for this one. So, I mean, I've got my prediction, which I think will happen because I'm making a prediction. I think that's the most likely outcome. Yeah. But I'm by no means saying that I can't see it going another way. So
no, I agree with you. Look, no one can write off Anthony Joshua blowing him out of the park. I mean, few of me and my friends have been talking about it, and I've got a bet with one of my mates. He's AJ, and I'm Klitschko. I'm not necessarily confident like you, and in this fight, I don't think anyone could be confident about absolutely any outcome. I mean, I really don't know.
That's why it's such an interesting fight.
It is, exactly. I think the most interesting outcome would be if Klitschko knocked AJ out. I think that would cause a lot of debate. But yeah, I'm glad we differ on this one. We don't usually differ, but I'm glad we differ on who we think's going to win, because it'll be good to have a chat afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of them fights, isn't it, where you can't really say either way. But yeah, all right then, mate. Well, should we wrap it up then? Because obviously we've been on here for a while.
Yeah, no problem.
So, yeah, we'll definitely do like a post-fight one then, and that should be quite an interesting one. And in that, we can obviously talk about where they both go from there. depending on who wins. Obviously, what's next for both of them. Deontay Wilder's going to be there apparently. But we'll talk about yeah. So that's good. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Tyson Fury's going to be there as well, and he's got 2 seats, I heard.
He probably needs 3. But,
Yeah, no, it'd be interesting. Well, Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, if they're both at ringside, then yeah, fuck knows what's going to happen after that. But yeah, no, that'll be a really interesting thing to see, especially if both get in the ring anyway, because they're both big bastards. If there's 4 big bastards in the ring, then God knows what's going to happen. Could be a few words. So yeah. So yeah, anyway, thanks for having me on again. I think it's going to be a good fight. Post-fight chat, definitely up for it, mate. Buzzing for that. Yeah, bring on Saturday night.
Yeah. All right, mate. Nice one. Cheers for coming on.
No worries, mate. Right, speak to you soon, Sean. Cheers.
See you later.